The choice of music for this year academy was made keeping in mind a wide variety of music. Every piece is a world of its own. Silbury Air by Harrison Birtwistle is a very, very special piece.
The image of Silbury Hill and the history of it and the mystery of it is something that really attracted Harry's imagination. And it starts very, very mysterious with these soft breathing sounds from the double bass. And while it's underneath the marimba, going da, 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 da. And it's absolutely captivating sound to start with. Within a few minutes, there's absolute mayhem.
There is this object, this hill that you can see as a whole, and inside it you have a structure, and the piece is built like this. It's very monolithic, while there is a wide variety of material in it, but the overall material is basically layers of time, layers of speeds. Although it doesn't refer to landscape at all, it's a little bit like if you're sitting on a train and you see the landscape. If you look at a point which is near the train, it will pass very fast. You almost don't see it. You see things very, very fast. And the more your sight comes in a distance from the train, the slower it gets. And this relation to the distances and the speeds is something which is very present in the piece.
Provided you can play the notes, which in terms of certainly the contemporary music repertoire, this piece is not very difficult at all. Much of the piece is in the mid-range. One or two fastest passages. It's not actually that hard to play. If you look at this piece, you'll see many rhythmic complications. Practically every bar or couple of bars, there's a new indication of how it relates to the bar before. For example, right at the beginning of the piece, virtually every bar changes in terms of the length of the beat. There are many, many complications here. The very good news for all the players is that all of that is up to the conductor.
If I take page 18 of the score, we have this tempo going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. But in this 5, I have to count, the conductor has to count the semiquavers, because in the next bar it will be the same tempo, but the bar is in 12/16. Every beat is 3 notes instead of 4, although it's the same tempo. And of course that determines the tempo which is on the bar after. It goes 1, 2, 3, yakitiki takitiki takiti 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 takam. So the tempo of the third bar is determined by the tempo of the triplet of the second bar, but it's not a triplet. It's a bar which is written in semiquavers, but there are only 3 instead of 4 before in the bar. Every tempo modulation is driven by the counting of very, very high-speed denominators, in fact, that the conductor has to have in mind. And this is very difficult, of course.
The rhythm is changing all the time. So you have bars of 4/16 followed by bars of 5/16. And then within that, there's a speeding up and a slowing down. So, for example, I'd have... On your own, of course, is easy, but to get the whole string section to play that together is actually very awkward, very difficult.
Everything is in the preparation. My advice would be to learn to play the piece as if it were unconducted. In other words, you have to know absolutely every speed to expect, and you have to know every tempo change to expect. A performance where the conductor was being perfectly followed, but every tempo change took the players by surprise, would obviously be very untogether.
As a conductor, of course, when you start conducting, you're very young, you have no experience. You have to experience your gestures a little bit, even when you work with a piece. But after a while, I mean, you know how you're going to be, how you're going to conduct. But for a piece like that, you have to actually work as an instrumentalist works. You have to try it. You have to try to be able to actually conduct the piece with the gestures are very technical to produce. So you have to work at it.
As far as the cello is concerned, you have got quite a few big jumps, which to play neatly are quite awkward. For example, things like that. And then the other thing is, of course, huge stretches. I think it's almost imperative that you use your thumb for these big interval here, where you've got to go from this interval to this interval. And you have to slide up. Slide down again. So you get one constant note and one note which is moving. That's quite awkward to play.
From the very misty, smoky beginning to the harsh and violent sounds of the middle, it's finding exactly the right kind of sound for each episode. Phrasing in this kind of music is very different from what they've been learning in conservatoires about phrasing Mozart and Brahms. Well, sometimes you have to play with an absence of phrasing. So, for instance, just have sequences of semiquavers. Now, I was trying to make them as even as possible, but what actually happens is that for part of that time they're in groups of 5 in relation to everything else that's going on. Other places they're in groups of 3, but you've got to just drive through remorselessly without any giving way at all. And of course that's where the conductor has to have a very clear understanding of what's going on there, not start trying to be musical. And this is something that goes against the grain. People want to go, and sometimes that's right, but here it's absolutely wrong. A lot of Harry's music you have to play very deadpan and not try and individually make a meaning of it from yourself, just do exactly what he wants. And the build-up and the cross rhythms working at different speeds then become apparent. If you start getting fancy and phrasing it, then it disturbs the whole flow.
Every conductor has a system of markings. When you get very difficult pieces to conduct, you ought to mark the scores more because you want to keep the relation with the musicians as close as it can be. When you see the page, you have to know immediately what you have to do. And I use many colors in my scores. I never get the scores back to the publishers for that reason, and they hate me for that, but I have to do it that way. And then after that, I can see more details, and I can, of course, keep the contact as much as I can with the musicians.
And I think that one thing about Birtwistle's music, which is incredibly attractive to audiences and easy for them to latch onto, is its sense of depth and its sense of ritual atmosphere. I think there's often a sense of ritualism. This piece works very much in constantly changing blocks, not in a way that minimalist music, something like John Adams' music, would do. You might not understand quite what's going on, but the sense of drama and the sense of ritual is incredibly apparent and incredibly strong.
It's very hard to describe music like this. Harry's music truly is unique. Well, of the pieces I've played of the sort of the great modern masters, this is definitely a Desert Island Disc for me.